Happy New Year! I talk about Fujinon Lens which I have today. Which lens I use for a situation. Why I use Fujinon Lens? This video is the explanation only. So, let's begin. At the first, I talk about XF10-24mmF4 R OIS WR. This lens is super wide angle and zoom lens. So I often use this lens for travel. I borrow with the previous model, but the lens has no weather resistant and no aperture ring. So I didn't buy it, but this model has both aperture ring and weather resistant. I often use this lens for bike tour because I'm worried about a lens gets wet while ride on the motorbike. This lens has optical stabilizer, but I think about it's better to take a tripod for night photography. Maybe the optical stabilizer uses much electricity. So sometimes I think about it decreases camera battery first than other lenses. And as you can see, this lens is large and heavy. So sometimes it's hard to take a picture with a hand. Next, talk about XF16mmF2.8 R WR. I borrow with XF16mmF1.4 R WR. The lens has so beautiful bokeh and clear and sharp image, but it's large and heavy for X Pro 2, so I didn't buy it. That time it's planned XF16mmF2.8 R WR. So I was waiting to sell this lens. This lens is small and compact, so I often take pictures of buildings and landscapes. But this lens has bit strange distortion when take pictures in JPEG. Next, talk about XF27mmF2.8 R WR. As you can see, this lens is thin and light, so it's good for snapshot. I borrowed with the previous model before buy this lens. That time it's rain, so I was worried about the lens gets wet. But this lens has weather resistant, so no problem even when take pictures in the rain. But you know, this lens has noise focusing, so it's a bit problem when take pictures in the quiet place. I don't take lunch yet, so have a break little. I bought chashu bento of Toshimayo bento. We call it chaben. Japanese often say before eat, itadakimasu. We are given many life with food, so it says thank you for the life. What is chashu? It's boiled a pork in soy sauce, but it grilled before boil. I often forget eat the food while taking pictures because I concentrate on pictures. Ate this. It's so tasty. ごちそうさまでした。I have allergy, so I can't stop running nose without a mask. So put on a mask again. Next, XF33mmF1.4 R LM WR. This lens is useful for snapshot, landscape, and portrait. And this lens has clear and sharp image and beautiful bokeh. It's better to prepare an ND filter because it's overexposure when take pictures with f1.4 aperture. I think about this lens is good for X-T4 and take a video because autofocus is quiet. But this lens is pricey, so if you don't need an f1.4 aperture, I don't recommend this lens, and it's heavy and large for X Pro 2. Next, XF35mmF2 R WR. I think about this lens is the most useful because I have X Pro 2. This lens, it doesn't disturb a viewfinder, so I often use this lens. But lens food is small and no glute. Other food is sold separately. Next, XF15mmF2 R WR. I bought this lens with X Pro 2 because this focal length is good for my pictures. It keeps a distance to take pictures of cats and flowers. And this lens has sharp and clear image even when taken with f2 aperture. So I guess this lens is good for portrait photography too. At the last, talk about XF90mmF2 R LM WR. This lens gets close to the subject, so it's good for a picture of cat and a flower. But I don't know why cats always escape from me while taking a picture. So different need a distance from me. That time, this lens is useful. As you can see, this lens is large and heavy. So be careful not to camera shake when you use X Pro 2. Why I don't buy XF23mmF2 R WR? Because I have X100P. The lens is 23mm f2, so I don't need same focal length. What do you think about this review? If you have a question, please comment it. Thank you for watching the video. See you next time. Maybe the optical stability. What do you think about this review? I said Happy New Year, but I'm taking a video in New Year's Eve. Actually, I'm waiting to explain about the camera and the lens because I forgot to what I say immediately.